Hello and welcome to the official Facebook page and YouTube channel of Digital Ideas. Once again, it's a day where the football lovers should be thoroughly enjoying the night. Two cracker of us, quarterfinals are waiting for us, and the first game, of course, Czech Republic, who have been absolutely stunning so far, will be taking on Denmark, who have been writing a folk tale rather ever since that incident happened with Ericsson. We all know that there were a lot of sympathy involved in it, but that totally stimulated the entire Denmark side. On the flip side of it, tonight another crackerjack contest as England would be taking on Ukraine and would be trying to qualify for the last four stages. As always, in fact, along with me, we have uh, English football youth development maestro, I would say, Andy Cooper, former Leeds, former Aspire, and more importantly, his values, his opinions always add a lot of interest among the football fans who have been witnessing this particular show. First of all, Andy, uh, did you think before the start of the competition as well that after four games, England would be the only team who would be yet to concede a goal?
No, I know I didn't, and it's a testament to how they've set up and how they've managed games. Obviously, they come under the cosh a lot against Scotland, and a few close calls there, but they've built a foundation on having a resolute defence, defending from the front as a team, not just that back four or back three and goalkeeper. It's been a real team effort, and what it also gives you a platform to build onto. So I thought they have had the critics in maybe not overpowering teams and looking dominant, but I think they've been very efficient, very productive in what they've been able to do. And obviously, when they've come to the big moments in big games, they've been able to dispatch the opposition. So long may it continue. I think it'll be another tricky and a different type of game today, but one that I do feel confident that England should have the quality to produce something.
Well, another wonderful game we have witnessed last night as Belgium went down fighting against Italy, and 32 games unbeaten for Italy. Quite a remarkable stat, isn't it?
Yeah, and they were our tip, weren't they, before the tournament? As ones that people haven't spoke about as much because of the recent troubles they've had over past campaigns, failed campaigns. But again, a solid outfit, back to front. Played very, very well against this kind of golden generation of Belgian players that's discussed, and they're going to be a real threat. You can see them getting through. They're obviously got a tough game next, but they're managing the squad, they're rotating the players well. You saw the kind of dark arts of football in that last 15 minutes, which is they're entitled to do, to manage their game out. The game management of it, to create the run down the clock and make sure they see out the game, which they're well within the rights. And I thought they were good value for the performance yesterday. Frustrating teams, they're difficult to play through. They defend very well as a unit and as a team. And I feel like they're now really on a good run of confidence as well, and they've managed the situation and the minutes of the players well to get into this position.
Well, the mic trapped guy, he has a statement rather. I think England will make it to the final this time coming home. We all hope that.
It's not something many of us have ever experienced here of being in a final of a major tournament, but obviously it's a number of games away, and we've been in these positions before where you may play opposition where you expect a performance, you expect a result. And for Gareth Southgate and his team, it might not be about performance. It's about results and business end of football now and getting the job done. So being how he sets his team up, how he prepares them against this Ukraine side, and maybe you switch back to the 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, if you want to call it that, might just suit the style of play that Ukraine have better. Might be looking at getting runners forward and getting in the pockets between Ukraine's defence and midfield. So players like Mason Mount, I'd expect. I think there's kind of been some breaking kind of leaked team news. So potential of Mason Mount to come back in there and play in them gaps. And then you've got the runners and the people running at the back four of Ukraine, or back three if they choose to go 3-5-2. So it'll be fascinating how they plan their approach to it. But I wouldn't be looking too far ahead. I do think you play your best your best team to get through, not one that protects players on yellow cards. I think you've got to just go strong, which for me would see Phillips and Rice continue to play in that midfield.
Yes, I mean, coming back to that formation, well, it's a buzz going around from. Okay, there's a question from Devayan Sinha. I'll be taking this question. Kyle Walker or Kieran Trippier? Who should start as a right full back?
I would go with Kyle Walker for today. I don't think there's much in it, and I think it's a real positive for the squad that you can look at both the fullback areas, and if they play three at the back, that might change with more attacking Trippier, as we've seen, and sometimes even Walker can play in that back three. But I do think they're pretty solid and set now. I do expect that they won't make too many changes. I think Luke Shaw will play at left back, Kyle Walker at right back, and then they'll keep Maguire and Stones, I would suspect.
Absolutely. Well, the question which I was supposed to ask is like news from Rome is like, Gareth Southgate is likely to make a lot of changes in the squad today. Even Jose Mourinho said the way they have been playing at the moment, they can rest a few players. But as far the news which I have got so far is like Calvin Phillips might be rested, and Jordan Henderson might start alongside Declan Rice. On the up front, there might be Mason Mount will be getting his place back, as well as Jadon Sancho, who might start it for the first time this season alongside Sterling. So Bukayo Saka might not get a start. What do you think about all these info?
Yeah, I think Saka, they've said he's maybe took a knock in training and he's a doubt, which is fair enough. I think to have Sancho on, not involved in one squad for the first game, the 23-man squad, and then on the bench and not come on yet is a luxury to have, and I'd have no problem in seeing him play today. I think it'd excite a lot of England fans and obviously the wider public watching him and how he goes. And maybe it's the game that Gareth Southgate's earmarked as one that suits him, that type of opposition. And I think he'll go ahead and I do think he'll play. I do think he'll get some minutes. The issue around Jack Grealish obviously has had a real impact, and you never want to be labelled like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a super sub, someone who's great off the bench. He'll be desperate for a starting place, but he has made that impact, and he comes on around the hour mark and can make a real difference when the game's got a little bit stretched. There's a bit more space. Obviously, Ukraine have come off the back of extra time as well, and they did have some injuries and a lot of fatigue in the game, cramping and things. So I do expect it'll be a slightly different. I'd be surprised if one of the centre midfielders is rested, but I do think Sancho will get a start today in place of Saka.
Question from Divine Sinha again. The question is Yarmolenko, Yaremchuk, Zinchenko. This trio, do you think that there'd be a separate plan from Gareth Southgate against these trio actually, because they have been absolutely brilliant throughout the course of this competition?
Yeah, it depends how he the manager sets up the team, and if Zinchenko is going to play at the bottom of it as a kind of holding midfielder role or wider on the left with more suited position, but he plays domestically, so that'll be fascinating. But of course, for all the talk that I'm giving about England, how they're going to set up, Ukraine will have a plan and a way in trying to exploit England, and that might be to soak up a lot of the pressure, to not have as much of the ball as they had done, and hit them on the break with the type of players that they've got in these wide areas. Yarmolenko, you think you can see what he's done so far. He's obviously, for me, going to be a really big threat on that right hand side. And you've got to look at Luke Shaw. You potentially with Yarmolenko being cutting back inside off the right, then they could potentially go with Trippier to counteract on that side, being obviously right-footed, playing at left back. So I think it's going to be, they're a really strong outfit, aren't they? And they've impressed that they've got through a lot of countries kind of unfancied and talked about at the start, but battling displays. They've worked together well as a unit, and on the ground they've really put in some deep performances when it's gone late into the game.
Well, coming back to the rivalry between England and Ukraine, in the last 10 years, there have been 3 times these two teams met against each other. And we have seen, like, out of 3 times, once England had defeated Ukraine, the rest 2 ended up in draws. So how do you think about this rivalry over the years? You have been an English, you know the culture, and more importantly, how does it mean actually when you're taking on a team like Ukraine?
Yeah, well, they're very well organized. They're very well drilled. they don't leave a lot maybe of gaps. They're very settled in how they're going to play, know the system well. But what has happened over games that they do potentially get stretched a little bit, and the place you can get in between them centrally, and that's where I think these type of skillful players that can receive the ball between Ukraine's back line and midfield line, and get in these little pockets and be creative and try and make something happen. Or even if the fullbacks can get really high, and then people such as Sancho and Sterling can come into these positions in off the wing and pick up the ball and then turn and face and run at the Ukraine defence. I think that's where the biggest threat is. But England will have one clear plan, and that'll be just for this game. It won't be looking too far ahead. Ukraine, it's a big opportunity for the country to take a step forward into a major semi-final, and that's what the full focus, and they'll have watched them. Obviously, they'll have done the research, and that'll be gone on long before. But also, they'll be tracking what they've done previously, how they've set up previously against them, but also how they've played and what type of changes Ukraine have made throughout the tournament.
Yes, question from Divine again. England's, please talk about the pressing pattern of England, because all the time around when they have been taking the pitch, they're looking to be a very, very well organized unit.
Yeah, because it doesn't vary too much from a couple of ways of setting up the team. So you know exactly what you're going to get. You know how they're going to start, and the same when they do have the ball. There's potential to criticise a bit slow in possession around the back, and there's been some discussions obviously on the pitch between Pickford and centre back about receiving it and where they want the ball and stuff. But it seems like it's a deliberate ploy to maybe have that comfortable possession without any penetration, and then they pick the moments to attack. They try and control the game by having the ball and then break forward, as opposed to playing it forward as soon as you can and quicker. So they've definitely been a lot slower in possession, getting from back to front, but without the ball, very well organised, and the stats speak for themselves. In certain, the goals against column still on 0.
Well, question from Tanmoy Karmakar, and the question is, should Jack Grealish start? This is a question from all the football fans across the globe at the moment.
Yeah, as I said before about labeling him as a super sub, you obviously want him to start. I'd like him to start, but I think this, from Gareth Southgate's point of view, he'll probably look at Mason Mount as potentially that number 10 position, and a bit more defensively sound, and gives a good balance and a good structure to Declan Rice and to Calvin Phillips. So I'd probably expect that he'd go with Mount, and then he'll leave Grealish to come either on a wide left or a central position, depending on how maybe one of the wingers, whether it's Rashford or Sancho, have played. He can play off the left. He had a good, obviously linked up well with Luke Shaw in that last game. But to be honest, he's an outstanding talent, and they're only a talent and got potential until you're on that big stage. And he's obviously showing it on a really top stage that he's got bags of ability and he's delivering. So, yeah, I would like to see him play. I think he's exciting. He gets bums off seats, and you want to see him play.
Question from Ankan Kaur, and the question is so how do you rate Gareth Southgate's team selection as well as his strategy?
From a coaching point of view, it's superb. I understand the critics from, he's been critiqued by fans about the style of play and a little bit too defensive, but it's a major tournament. You're playing against good teams, and getting through the group how they did. The toughest game seems to have been against Scotland, and that's based probably on history and emotion and the big occasion of the day. And then he's managed the squad and the balance well. When you look at Sancho still not had any minutes, it's really surprising. You look at Calvert-Lewin on the bench. There's some very good players. I think he's handled the selection of the team. He's hard to criticise for what he's done. He's his own man. He's got his own methods. He's got a great coaching team around him that be able to develop a style of play over a number of seasons now. And obviously, you saw in the last World Cup how impressive they've been. So, yeah, I do have a lot of respect for the work that he's done with the national side.
Saptarshi Bhattacharya has a question. I think this question will push you on the hot seat of Ukraine's boss in some way or the other, because the question is what would be the special plan today for Harry Kane and Sterling?
Yeah, get the ball at the other end of the pitch a lot quicker, I think, and keep it away from them. But if you're an England fan, you want Harry Kane to doesn't have to drop as deep as he potentially has been doing when he's searching for that ball, but he can still drop and try and drag them centre backs out with him, and then leave the space in behind for the wingers to get in. That would be a really key ploy, and I know it's working down that left hand side really well, and also with Sterling, and they sometimes do swap over. From a Ukraine point of view, it's that having that defence and then midfield units close together to stop them balls into him. And allowing him to turn or allowing him to lay the ball off to people like Mason Mount, who can then start the attack. So it's not just about the person who's nearest to Harry Kane to stop the threat. It's about where the ball's coming from and the source, and that's closing down the ball much quicker than they did in the last kind of half an hour of extra time in the last game. But being resolute, being compact, working hard off the ball to stop the ball getting into Kane or to Sterling would be a key ploy. And they'll work on that for sure. They'll see the patterns of where the passes are going, how these players receive it, and they'll look to stop it at source, not just deal with it when it gets there.
We'll have a question, and this question is certainly about Jadon Sancho. He has been making headlines for the last one season, rather, for different newspapers' perspective as well. Of course, when someone is linked with Manchester United, of course, that happens. Do you think that the announcement from Manchester United that he has officially joined the club will help him to concentrate or focus more on Europe?
Yeah, and we mentioned it when you put me on the spot last week, asking if it would happen, and I said it had happened. I think it was done a long time, a number of weeks ago. I think he already knew about it, and he's been comfortable with it, and it was just a case of it getting released at the right time. For sure, give him a boost, knowing it's all sorted, it's done, it's out in the open. And I imagine that he'll be brimming with confidence, knowing the size of the club and going back, I guess, home to the city, although in different colours. And I'm sure he's looking forward to getting started.
Question from NBS Production, and the question is Denmark or Czech Republic? Who's going to make it to the semi-finals?
Oh, I love a fairy tale story, so I don't know if it's a really football correct answer in terms of playing style and how the matchup. I do think it's going to be close. It's going to be a tight game, that one. It wouldn't surprise me if that one goes into extra time, but I'd love to see Denmark get through. I love a fairy tale.
Do you think the same way, like the way I started this show today, like the sad incident of Eriksen somehow pumped an entire team up and made them a different unit altogether?
Yeah, I mean, the scoring goals are fun, aren't they? What they scored 4 in each of the last 2 games. I think they've got potentially Poulsen back from injury today. Maybe 2 could start, but then obviously Dolberg came in and scored a couple of goals. So there's a nice selection headache for the coach to have in terms of he changes things up or he plays them both or just goes with one and maybe one striker behind. But they're the Euro '92 days where they galvanised a squad and a country and they came through. It's great when you see these stories happen in football, and they fully deserve to be there on merit. They played well. They really dispatched an underperforming Wales side in that game, and I do think it'll be a much closer game tonight against a kind of compact and solid Czech side. Obviously, Schick, who's performed very well in it, and whether he'll be a big threat for them tonight and hard to handle, no doubt.
Well, I mean, Czech Republic have never defeated Denmark in the last 10 years. It's a kind of a jinx. But how do you see this Czech Republic side as a whole, this particular Euro tournament? Right from the very first game, they live to be a different, surprising unit altogether. We all talk about the dark horse. Hasn't been the dark horse of this tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there was that first game against Scotland, wasn't it? And they dispatched Scotland the cup 2-0. They've just been very well solid and compact with the kind of 2 words I wrote down before when I was kind of watching them play and thought, but then they've had the opportunity to break and to counter, and then obviously they've scored some great goals, some kind of long-lasting goals as well. So they are a force to be reckoned with, and that's why I think it'll be interesting who kind of makes the first move in today. It could be a cagey, tight affair, I think, that with not too much given away from both sides.
Absolutely. Coming back about Harry Kane, we all knew how good a goal scorer he has been over the years. I mean, in the qualifying stage as well, he was absolutely phenomenal, scored almost in all 9 games which England played over there. But all of a sudden, it was not coming in terms of scoring goals in this particular Euro Cup. Don't you think the goal which he scored against Germany the other day might just open the deadlock for him for the rest of the competition?
Yeah, I think it's confidence, isn't it? And it's a habit. He's got a great training mentality. He loves to score goals. He's a winner. He maybe people would doubt that for Tottenham perhaps, but he's a winner in terms of his personality. You could see that and how other people respond to being around him. Obviously, captain and leader, and his work ethics has been superb, and that's what has not changed. And if you're a striker, you know you're going to go through these lean spells. Everybody does. It's not just continuous all the time. There's ups and downs. He's had the injury niggles as well. But once you get that first goal, it doesn't matter how it comes, whether it's a tap in from a few feet or whether it's a header, a decent header from a cross in. You take it and then you're straight away on to the next game. And I do think, there was calls for potentially him to be dropped. I know he was taken off in one game, but class is permanent and he's been a real threat. And I do feel that a side without him in would obviously, Ukraine would be massively surprised, but also it would be a weaker team without him. So I fully expect him to kick on now, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's on the score sheet tonight.
The last three questions. One question will certainly be regarding Spain and the way they made it to the semi-finals yesterday. It was once again a cracker of a contest. Switzerland, they did which they had been doing throughout this competition, playing very compact, playing very solid. And how do you rate the performance of Yann Sommer as well?
Yeah, it's tough games, aren't they? And I think they take a lot out of the teams. I know when you had Stephen Jones on from the S&C's perspective, now you're thinking, what are they feeling today? They've got quick turnaround. I think the next game's Tuesday, isn't it? Tuesday night they play potentially, and it's you've gone into extra time. And when it came to that penalty shootout, and obviously they missed the first one, you're thinking, wow, there's going to be another story here. This is going to be incredible. But it just shows what anything can happen in football. You know that they were going to have a lot of the ball. You know that Switzerland were going to be resolute and make things difficult and break up the play. And, I think they were over 65%, but it's what ball possession, but it's what you do with the ball that counts. And if you're not moving it quick enough and you're not moving the opposition around, then you can't get through them. And obviously Switzerland has set up well. They conceded a lot of chances. But in fairness, that's how they're going to play. They're open and honest with that. They don't try and hide away from how they set up and how they play. But Spain will be tested in a different type of game next against obviously a top class opposition.
Last couple of questions. One would be certainly regarding Luke Shaw. We all know how good a potential he was since his Southampton days. But he started exceedingly well when he signed for Manchester United. Got badly injured when Louis van Gaal was the head coach in one of the games. Everyone thought that he would be nowhere near to his best of form in future as well. Played an had some very, very bad time rather with Jose Mourinho. Controversies, crawled back, showing a lot of character. Had a wonderful season with Manchester United. And then, how do you rate his performance in this Euro so far?
Yeah, he's played very well, and what he's shown is a lot of determination and courage to come back from multiple setbacks. That double leg break can make it difficult for people to return to the top level. And obviously now with modern science and medicine, they're able to speed up recovery process, but you still lack confidence to be able to get back, to challenge, to run, to compete, to jump, to land, all these type of things that he's done. And then when he comes back from that, and he's then up against a manager who kind of singled him out and criticised him publicly, and that kind of hasn't really left him. But he seems to have found strength in that and gained a lot of, got his head down and knuckled down and worked, got himself back into the England fold, and then you're looking at him being the starting left back at the Euro. So he's done brilliantly. I'm sure he was a little bit he had accepted the decision, but I'm sure he was a little bit disappointed when he didn't get the nod when Trippier started, especially if it's not his natural position. But since he's come in, he's linked up really well with Grealish. He's able to get forward and sometimes get ahead of the winger and put balls in. So he's been a complete threat. But also, if he hasn't been able to get back, if you look at when the possession is lost, he's also had Kyle Walker on the other side, who's so quick and's been able to cover and add cover into that back four if obviously one of them's gone higher up the pitch. So he's got a good balance about him, and to be fair, he's a credit for how he's come back from the adversity and the kind of up and down stage that he's had of his career. And you hope now that's behind him, he's over it, and he can push on and then take this form into the new season with Manchester United.
Of course, the last question, and it would be certainly regarding Raheem Sterling. We all criticized this decision for the first time when we saw when you had the likes of Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Jack Grealish, like outstanding players in your ranks. You start and Gareth Southgate persistent, and he continuously used Raheem Sterling on the left flank. He has been the highest scorer for England at the moment. How do you see this particular story of having faith on a player who didn't have a good season with Manchester City and making it to the big stage?
Yeah, I think there is an issue going on there, isn't there, with his club, and some of the comments he's made seem to mention how happy he is at the England camp, and it's a different to the club environment at the moment and stuff. So there obviously is something, and what he's probably been able to do is park that and get his head really around a good positive environment that he's got in the country, in the national team setup. But again, it goes back to what we mentioned before in terms of Gareth Southgate, how he's built a team around key players, and he's also stuck by them, and that fate's been repaid by the players. Harry Kane won, Sterling now. A lot of criticism comes his way for potentially not being calm enough in front of goal and being wasteful of chances. But he's shown really that he can have a big impact in games, in big moments. And teams sometimes have to double up on him, or at least the other centre half gets a little bit closer than he normally would, which then gives more space for other players off the ball. So he is hard to handle and a complete threat, especially drifting in when they play that three at the back and the wing backs are pushing really high, and he can just drift inside and pick up the ball. But one thing for me, and it showed in some of the games, that he can obviously go searching for the ball and come inside too early, and it's when England are still within their own half, and he picks the ball up on the halfway line, and it's not quite the right moment, and then they recycle it and go again. But it might be a tactic for them, and that's what they look to do. But you obviously want him to be doing that in and around the box, in and around goal, 10, 15 yards outside of that penalty area. And that's what I think he'll get the opportunity to do today. I think he'll be able to drift in and receive the ball with decent quality passing, and then he needs to be facing the forward, facing the opposition and running at them. And then that's where you see they get the free kicks, the fouls, you get the combinations. So he's obviously an outstanding talent, playing very well, and obviously with a manager behind him who's have had faith in him, he's been able to deliver, and it just shows what trust and a good camaraderie around the team and training environment can do to a player.
We are going towards the end of this show for today, and a quick prediction, Andy. First game, Denmark versus Czech Republic.
I will go Denmark to win in extra time.
Okay. Second question, of course. The answer is expected, but still a question. Like England versus Ukraine.
I'm going to go England a 2-0 lead, and then they're going to get pegged back. They're going to concede. Ukraine will score, which will ensue a bit of a moment of panic and this kind of emotion that here we go again type thing. And then England will break away and score the third. 3-1 England.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andy, for having time
Pleasure.
with us. Hope the three lions should be playing like the way they have been playing in this competition as well, and register another victory to surge their pedals towards the semi-finals. Another, as we just mentioned and throughout the show as well, two outstanding games on display on the cards, and we'll have to find that who would be the two who would be going to the last full stage of this competition. Thanks for joining us.